Hey, this is Kyle Crawford from Strong Dads. Strong Dads wants to thank Crimer Beer House for sponsoring today's Strong Dads podcast. The beer house was started in 1982 by the Crimer family. Since that time, they have become a Cincinnati favorite. If you're looking for an incredible meal and an incredible setting, you have to try Crimer's Beer House down on Route 128 in Cleves, Ohio.
Welcome to Strong Dads. Hey, this is Merle Hutchinson from Strong Dads and
Kyle Crawford.
Kyle. Yeah. So, man, you don't sound good at all. You got this bad cold.
I got this thing going on. The girls gave it to me, and now I got it.
If you give me this, I am never going to forgive you.
You got the disinfectant mics when we get done.
Man, there's just nothing worse than getting a cold. And I always get, 2 or so colds a year. I used to get one in the fall, one in the spring. And I haven't had my one in the fall yet, so now I know I'm doomed. So thank you. I'll thank you in advance. Thank you.
I'm going to blame it on the drastic weather change we've had in the last couple of days.
Yeah, I know.
Holy smokes.
This global warming is killing us right now. It's tough, man. This is tough. Yeah. Man, we're going to have some fun today. We're going to have a little conversation about really our perspectives as being dads. Just to give you listeners out there a little insight, Kyle, you are the father of...
Two girls.
Okay.
Yep.
And I am the father of originally two biological boys.
Sure.
And now my boys are older and out of the house and have their own families. But we've adopted 3 other kiddos, and 2 of those are boys.
Yeah.
And I do have one girl.
Good for you.
Yeah.
I'm glad you get to experience
so
that.
I do have a little bit of experience with the girl, but not as much as many of you, and especially as you, Kyle. So we're going to have a little bit of fun just about how, we always talk about maybe there's different double standards of how we parent boys versus girls and all that. And you and I are just going to go back and forth a little bit. Well, what would you do in this situation?
Yeah.
Well, what would you do in this situation? And just see how we look at our girls versus our boys differently. And hopefully we'll come through just with some humor, but also with some message on the end of this show that all of our strong dads can grab onto. So before we get into that any farther, let's say thanks to our sponsors.
For sure. Yeah. So definitely Strong Dads would like to thank Crimer's Beer House down on 128. It's been around since 1982 and definitely become a Cincinnati favorite. My wife and I actually had a chance to go down there and grab a bite to eat. And man, their pork chops, whoo, boy, they were good.
Good
Eating down there. So yeah, definitely go down there, Crimer's Beer House, and check them out.
Yeah, so they do a great job down there. Mark Crimer's a good man, helps us out here. Also, we want to say thanks to Mansfield Insurance Agency. And Mansfield Insurance Agency is located in Bright, Indiana, and they were established in 1981. The cool thing about Mansfield Insurance is that they don't really tout themselves on all the products rather than all of the service that they provide. And so they have every product you need, but more than that, when you have a need, they're going to help take care of that need. And anytime you've ever had a situation where you've had to work into your insurance policies, the most frustrating thing is when you can't seem to get answers. Yep. And so Mansfield makes it their priority to get you the answers and to get the solutions that you need for your insurance needs. So give Mansfield's a call. All right. So we also want to thank just all of our sponsors. We continue to grow and get support. Strong Dads is a podcast out of the ministry of Rock Solid Families. And Rock Solid Families is a 501c3 nonprofit. And so we do survive a lot on people's donations and contributions. And we are in the month of November and December having what we're calling Close the Gap, where we are shooting to close the gap essentially on our financial needs through the end of the year. And so we have a $50,000 goal, to help us be able to meet our financial needs and finish out this year. And that may seem like a lot, but we're asking and just putting it in God's hands. So if you would like to donate, you can go to our webpage at rocksolidfamilies.org, and there's a donate button on there. Or you can always give us a call and learn more about our ministry and what we do and see if it's something that God lays on your heart. So you can reach us at 812-576-7625. All right. Let's have some fun.
All right, let's do it. I'm excited.
All right, so I tease you all the time about being a hard-nosed, cold heart, all this stuff.
That's part of it's true.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll go back and forth here.
All right.
So you got two sweet little girls. I just saw little Mia today, and it's a good thing she takes after her mother. She is such a sweet kid. But little Mia, she comes in and she just scraped her knee outside. She run around, having a little bit of fun, and she scraped her knee. How does Mr. Kyle take care of that? What's he do? Now tell me what you really do, because I don't want to hear this BS of like, well, I would.
Both my girls are completely different in this. Mia has a tendency to kind of suck it up a little bit. And Ava kind of just lays it out there, and maybe goes a little bit further than what it needs to be. So I've learned,
in your opinion,
in my opinion, yes, I guess I should. Yes. So I have learned that when Mia scrapes her knee and comes in a little teary-eyed, I can be a little bit harder on her and be like, "All right, Mia, like take a couple minutes, suck it up, you're good."
Yeah.
And then Ava. I have to be very gentle with her. She has a very gentle soul that I have to kind of pamper and protect a little bit. But it's good. It's good that they have different personalities. I can kind of approach them a little bit different because of my profession, because of what I do. I've seen the worst of the worst. So when a little scraped knee, I have a tendency sometimes to kind of brush it off.
Yeah.
And Jenny had a tendency to bring me back down to real world, like, well, this is the biggest thing for them right now, so we have to make sure we take care of that.
That's a good point. Yeah. Yeah, you're used to seeing legs amputated.
Yes,
so,
this is true.
Yeah,
so a little scraped knee doesn't seem so bad. But that's how I would deal with it. What about you, Merle? What would you do if you're two old boys that are now older, probably my age?
Well, if it happened to them right now at the age they are, I'd laugh at them. And
right.
Because they would laugh at me if I scraped my knee. When they were little, both my boys were pretty outgoing and kind of rough and tumble, and so honestly, I'm not even sure that they would bring it to my attention, to be honest. I mean, I'm trying to think back. Usually, their knees and legs were always just bruised and bumped up, and I don't really remember them bringing it to me much at all.
How many times did they bring it to Linda?
And not very often. Now, maybe when they were really little, but they were always more interested in the activity that they were doing, whether it was out riding bikes or whatever. They were like, I'm fine, and they would go back out. So I don't really remember a big deal with that. With that being said, with our adopted kids, I do see a total difference in how they handle bumps and bruises and scrapes. And so anytime they get scraped, they do bring it to our attention. And it's hard for me because I sometimes minimize it. Like, are you serious? It's just a little scrape. And it's a big deal for them. And so I've had to kind of relearn, like, okay, wait, why are they making this a bigger deal?
Sure.
And trying to work them through it. And I have not always done the best job, because sometimes I've thought, like, well, you got to be tougher than that. You got to handle it. And I definitely probably say the wrong thing a lot of times, and especially with our daughter, because she will sometimes act like her leg is amputated, and I'll be like, well, it's going to be all right, So I've gotten better, but that's been an adjustment for me.
Sure, I bet.
Now, how about this one for you? So how about your girls? They have an expectation, whatever. They think they're going to get ice cream that day or whatever, and something turns about and they don't get it.
Oh boy!
And they're not happy that they didn't get what they want.
Yep.
They might even be whining or pouting a little.
Oh, you don't say.
How do you handle that?
So this is actually, I'll be honest, this is an argument that Jenny and I, my wife, have a lot. So at 5:30 in the morning, when Mia comes into the room and says, I want to come to bed with you guys, I'm the one that says, heck no, get the heck out of here. Like I'm trying to sleep. Yeah. And Jenny a lot of times has a tendency to kind of cater to that a little bit. And I think that's just a mom and a dad, the difference probably that comes along with that. So I'm not very good at kind of bending to their needs a lot. A lot of times and part of this is how I was raised. A lot of how I parent is how I
Sure.
parent.
Yeah, it's your model.
Yeah, but in the same sense, I'm also a man, and my dad raised me, with a little bit different than how he raised my sister. So yeah, I have a tendency to kind of, right now we're in a big transition with our girls and teaching them needs versus wants. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of times they're always like, I need to be in bed with you, Daddy. And I'm like, no, you want to be in bed with me, but you're not going to be in bed with me. So typically I have a tendency to kind of brush them off and let them know that the expectation maybe not is what their my expectation of them is not what theirs is of me, and those do vary a little bit. So again, I'm probably a little bit harder on them than my wife is. She had a tendency to cater to them a little bit, but she's also a woman dealing with girls, and she understands the emotion that comes with that. So.
A little bit softer heart towards
yes,
it. Yeah. I'm not good at this one. How come all of a sudden I feel like I'm failing on all these questions? So, again, I raised two older boys. Neither one were whiners. And so oftentimes we didn't raise them with a whole lot of materialistic movement. They did not ask for a lot, and we didn't really provide above and beyond. Yep. And so it just was not that big of a deal. On occasion, if they didn't get what they wanted, it was so rare that we'd be like, hey, we'll work it out.
Sure.
It's not a big deal. With our adopted kids, this has been a big deal. And I'm still trying to wrap my head around it. I think they came into our home a lot more needy. And maybe you use the right word. Maybe they came into our house a lot more wanting.
Yeah.
And I would call it needy. They would call it wanting. I'd call it wanting, and they would call it needing. Like everything is a need, and I'm like, no, that's not really a need.
Yep.
And so we on a daily basis, we find them getting frustrated that they didn't get what they wanted.
Sure.
It is interesting. They already have a list of Christmas, and where our older boys didn't. We'd have to beg them to make a Christmas list, So they were just very different kids in terms of how they approached the needs and the wants. And so because our kiddos now have a lot more wants and desires, they seem more disappointed on a regular basis because they're not getting all those things.
Right.
And so we really have had to try to put perspective on it. Listen, seriously, it might be like, did they get a pop?
Sure.
Did they get a soft drink or something? And they didn't get it, and their day's ruined. And I'm trying to teach perspective. Listen, it's a soft drink, man. It's a soft drink. We are not going to let a soft drink ruin our day.
Right.
And trying to teach them that perspective. But, and I would be lying if I told you that at times I did minimize their wants. Yeah. That's not a big deal, you know. But in their mind, it is.
Yeah.
So this is something we constantly try to work through. And again, I not always coming off with the best words there.
Right. Isn't it funny how when we go about parenting as far as letting a small little thing ruin their day, and then I know for me Kentucky just lost a big basketball game and it ruined my day. Something so small as Kentucky basketball.
Awesome.
I always tell my girls it's not that big of a deal, and to them it's a huge deal. I'm like, Jenny should just smack me Kentucky losing.
Yeah,
ain't
are
that
you
big
really
of a deal.
going to mope around all day long? I'm glad you brought that up.
Your football team losing, it's like, oh, my day's ruined. Sunday's done.
Yeah, that's great perspective too, because it's all kind of in the eye of the beholder.
Oh, absolutely.
So working and trying to teach our kids how do you get resolved when you don't get what you want, and how do you get resolved so that you can continue to work through your day is so important. And all of our kids handle that a little differently, and how we handle it as parents is different based off, like you said before, how we were raised.
Yeah, absolutely. So kind of just keep moving down. So Merle, how would you deal with your boys when it comes to chores and different odds and ends jobs around the house? How did you parent them? How do you continue to parent your new kids?
Yeah, so Linda and I always had chores and jobs for the kids to do, And I was definitely with our older boys, I was always pretty no nonsense.
Sure.
Like, especially as they became old enough to be out in the yard and do things that were more connected to me. There was just an assumption on my part that they were going to pick up a hammer or get a wheelbarrow or a shovel or do it, and they were going to do that. And they did not always do a great job, but I'd be like, hey, no, here's what you do. And so it was a lot more teaching with them of the different skills that were involved. I continue to do that with our younger kids now that we have, and that's been a little different because this is where I really messed up with having a girl that I did not have before. I've had the expectation often that she's out in the yard working with us, and she has no interest in it at all.
Sure.
She is a worker inside the house.
Yeah.
I mean, she will do anything in the house, whether it's cooking, baking, cleaning, decorating. She loves that stuff, and she will outwork anybody there. But when I ask her to come and work with me, different chores and stuff outside, especially when it's hot or something uncomfortable outside, wow, she and I bump heads. Yeah. And so I've had to learn, okay, it's not that she doesn't want to work. This is just not in her element. And so I don't give her a total pass.
Sure.
Because sometimes I think it's important that she still learns how to work through things that she doesn't like necessarily. But I've really had to learn that her gift is not doing a lot of the hard physical labor. And that's not me saying, well, you're a girl, you shouldn't go out and do yard work. That's her. It's like pulling teeth. Yeah, it's like pulling teeth to get that. So I've had to recognize that, and I'm getting better at it. But yeah, how about you?
So yeah, just like I was saying, with your daughter, the different personality. My girls actually they tend to want to do some harder work, whether it be mulching the yard. They, again, their work versus my work, I hope, look a little bit different. Maybe not.
Jenny says I can't tell the difference.
But no, they'll pull their car, their motorized car, and I'll load up the back of their Jeep up with mulch. I'm into woodworking, and they like to come out and I teach them how to do the hammer. But as far as like chores around the house, it's mostly with my oldest Ava. She's into wanting to buy stuff, and so she's all about wanting to do chores around odds and stuff around the house, whether it be feed the dog, take the trash out, let the dog out of the cage, odds and stuff like that. So she's kind of bought into that idea of doing work, which is really cool for me to see, because I do feel like it's definitely a life skill that I want to teach her, that the value of work. So it's been really cool to see her kind of buy into that. I know when I was building their treehouse, they were definitely wanted to help out. I think they saw the long term. The faster Daddy builds it, the faster he can play from the tree.
And this was no ordinary tree house. It's like a little Taj Mahal over on the west side.
Right, whatever. So no, I would definitely say with Ava, her personality, she wants to work, which is really cool to see. And Mia's she's still a little too young to really grasp that idea, but she still understands mostly from her sister, like, oh, if I work and I get a little money, I can go buy a Barbie.
Yeah.
But no, that's kind of where they're at. Ava's definitely bought into the idea of working, and I think it's a good thing for her to learn that.
So you don't really have to twist her arm too much to get them out there and get involved and help like that. That's great. Yeah.
And Ava also sees, if she has money in her piggy bank, she gets to go get a milkshake from UDF, and that's like the bee's knees for her.
Yeah.
That's big
good.
for her. So.
Yeah. How about with sports? So I know both you and I like sports. So how would you approach your kiddos, your girls, with sports and the types of sports that they're going to participate in?
Oh boy. So I talked about this in a previous episode. Ava played basketball. I guess it was last year, and I was her coach. And oh boy, it was an adventure. Ava, as I've made mention before, she's a very emotional girl, and she gets overwhelmed very, very easy. So I have kind of had to take a step back when it comes to the sports with her, and I've let her, basically giving her options, but not telling her, hey, we're going to play basketball this season. So giving her option. I'm hoping to get her involved in golf. Something I thoroughly enjoy, and I think it'd be a really cool time for us to bond. But as far as kind of the stereotypical sports with girls versus boys, again, it's hard because I was raised in a very competitive house. I have a younger brother, and we would go at it all the time in every sport. So I'm learning. My wife was a cheerleader, and that's not something I'm I don't know a whole lot about that.
Right. Would you be okay with your girls cheerleading? Oh, that's an answer right there. Sorry, moms, if you're out there listening and you want your daughter to be a cheerleader.
No, I would be okay with it. I really like with Mia. She does gymnastics. Well, they both do gymnastics, but I think Mia could be really, really like she could excel in that, partially because she's so stinking flexible. Mm-hmm. So gymnastics is something that they both really, really enjoyed, and we've talked about doing things like piano lessons and just the benefits. If you look at the benefit of sometimes learning how to do something besides a sport, whether it be theater, music, art, something like that, I'd be totally on board. I think that's not just because they're girls, but I think it's just acceptable. I mean, it's one of those things that the long-term life goals that they can learn from something like that could be really beneficial for them.
Yeah, that's good stuff. So with me and the boys situation, my older boys, the sports and the activities, my older boys gravitated right towards the sports. It was not a big deal at all. In fact, I always felt like they were right in step with what I was interested in anyway, so really didn't miss a beat with that. They were competitive, they were hardworking, they were willing to get in and do whatever in terms of the sport realm. When we adopted kids, that was really interesting because our oldest son that we've adopted, he was more on the line of sports that I'm on in terms of baseball, football, basketball, that kind of thing. And he really is good at that stuff and gravitates towards it. Our younger son, he's very athletic, but he gravitates towards all kinds of stuff. He loves gymnastics.
Sure.
I mean, that boy can do flips and flops. Yeah. Well, I don't know anything about gymnastics. And so all of a sudden I was introduced to something that was new. Yeah. And we even enrolled him in some gymnastics classes, and he was the only boy.
Yeah.
And I was like, are you sure? Are you okay with this? And he's like, I don't care. I want to do flips.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, as long as you're with it. And he went out and did a heck of a job with that. So he's been different in the sense of the type of sport, but we still have been really big on whatever you want to do, that's fine, but you have to give it your best when you're at it.
Sure.
Our daughter, honestly, she was my first exposure to cheerleading. And I was kind of indifferent. I didn't really care, cheerleading or not, but she was coming home every day and complaining about all of the drama with the girls. And that was an exposure to me where I finally said, I'm not real big on this right now because if you're going to come home, you're just as bad with the drama because you're bringing all the drama right back home here.
Yeah.
And so we're going to really reconsider whether it's not necessarily the cheerleading, but what the cheerleading was exposing her to.
Sure.
I wasn't big on that, and I started to not show a favor to that. And actually, she kind of pulled herself from that. Eventually, she was like, I really don't want it. And so she has gravitated now more towards the volleyball. Yeah. She loves that. And, of course, my wife was a volleyball player, so that's been good. Our thing with sports create a lot of natural discipline because of the practice and the sweat and that. And we treat it a lot like work. No, you're going to go out there and you're going to sweat and you're going to get bumped and bruised and you're going to have sore muscles, and we're not going to give you a lot of sympathy for that because if you let that hold you up, then you're never going to get to the trophy, so to speak, of actual senior victories. Yeah. So we enjoy the sports for that reason, and all of our kids have really been good with us allowing that to be in their life.
Yeah, isn't that cool that as parents, I think there's a lot of benefits in putting your kids in uncomfortable situations, but just hearing you talk about your son with gymnastics. As a parent, that was probably a little bit uncomfortable knowing you're the only dad of a son in a gymnastics class, and how cool that what a learning experience that is. Even as a parent, you're putting your kids in those situations, but you're also gaining a great there's a huge learning that comes along with that.
Yeah, I was the only parent with a boy out there, and it didn't bother him, so it didn't bother me.
Sure.
If it would have bothered him, we would have had to try to figure out, okay, so what do we need to do? But he acted like he honestly was there to do the flips, you know. And sorry you happen to be a girl, but I'm a boy and I like to do flips.
That's cool.
So we were totally okay with that.
Right. Well, this next one, I can't really comment on because neither of my girls are of age to drive a car. But how did you go about teaching your two oldest boys to drive a car?
It was kind of a no-brainer. Both of them were mechanical and just had the prowess to figure it out and jump in behind the wheel and do that. Our older adopted son has been the same way. He's jumped right in there. I don't even question his ability.
Yep.
He'll get his license here in this next coming year, but he's very competent on the road.
Sure.
So that part's not been a problem. The interesting part about this is maybe a slightly different view, and that is securing the car and maintaining the car.
Yeah.
I have taught my boys how to do what they need to do, like changing oil and changing tires. And you know what? I'm not doing it for you.
Yeah.
And if your car was not running right, which my older boys were not always the best at securing the maintenance part of their car, I would just be like, figure it out, dude. It's your car. I've got every tool you need.
Yeah.
You better figure it out. And we still tease about it today because they'll be like calling me, hey, how do you change oil in that car? I'm not telling you how to change oil in that car. That window closed. You got to go look at YouTube now.
That's funny to say because I was driving, it was my parents' car at the time, and the oil light came on, and I just thought that meant that the car had oil. I didn't know that meant we're past due oil change. That's cool.
Yeah.
So these next two, I'm gonna kind of group together, and that's dating and prom. Oh boy, this could get interesting. This could probably be interesting because we obviously have way different perspective, I would assume, when it comes to dating and prom and kind of all that fun stuff. So what are your thoughts on that?
We always joked around in our house about even when they were little, like, who do you have a crush on? You know, what little girl do you like or whatever? And our older boys, I think they were afraid of girls. Like they were like, you know what? I don't know. That's a different kind of animal. And they shied away from the whole girl and dating. And even into high school, they were very slow to date. And so we did kind of make a statement that, as far as actual dating, you're not going to date until you're 16.
Okay.
Because you're going to pay for your own dates.
Yeah.
And you're going to be able to provide your own transportation. So mommy and daddy aren't going to pay for your dates and that kind of thing. So we just kind of laid it down like that, and we're pretty straightforward with it. And it just was not a big issue. Okay. There was some conversation about how I expected our boys to treat girls with respect and not as an object.
Sure.
And so we had conversation about that. And I would say just from watching them grow up that they have honored that and have been very respectful to their girlfriends and eventual wives. Our younger ones, now I have a girl in the mix.
Yeah.
And I will tell you, you can say all you want, but the double standard is starting to pop up.
Yeah.
And that is, she's a very good, sensitive little girl.
Yep.
And I shouldn't say little girl. She'll hear that and she'll get mad at me. But she's a sensitive girl, and I am more watchful of who she's surrounding herself by. I always felt like my boys, if they got into a little bit of a situation, they could work their way out of it. But I do feel like, a boy could take advantage of my daughter.
Yeah.
And I don't want to protect her in the sense of I'm going with you on the date.
Right.
But I do feel a need to give her the tools and the skills. And so sometimes I paint some pretty dark pictures of dating. Like, no, that dude, I know what that dude's after, man.
Yeah.
And, so... and I think it's just because in my mind, and just working with all of the people that I work with in my business, girls have so much more at stake when dating goes bad.
Yeah.
And you'd like to say, well, boys do too, but the bottom line is girls, whether they get pregnant, whether they just get pushed to the side. Their emotions are much more raw, and so I do have a different approach to my daughter than I do for our boys.
Yeah. So this is something that my wife Jenny and I we talk about when that time comes for our girls to start dating. And I don't think there's ever a time. It's never too early to start talking about dating and the opposite sex. And as a man, I obviously know what happens as boys go through puberty, and I know the hormones, what happens with that. And so I think it's very, very a good idea for you as a dad to speak real truth to your girls. I know for me, my big thing with my girls in talking about dating with them and what I want to portray to them is the importance of protecting their reputation and protecting their heart. Yeah. And the great benefit that comes along with that, that when my girls do start dating, I want to make sure that the boy that they are dating understands those two very important things, that my girl's reputation has to be the top priority for that boy. Yeah. And that my daughter's heart has to be at the top of his priorities, because when you have a boy who doesn't fully understand that, then just like you were saying, teaching your boys to understand that a woman is a person, not just an object, so that when that boy does take my girl out, those are the two top priorities that he's going to protect at all times with her, and when he's not with her, when he's with his buddies, and he gets to say whatever he wants. It's more of an open forum that my daughter's reputation is on the forefront of his mind, and those are definitely two things I want to make sure as my girls progress and get to that point. When it comes to going to prom, you can go online and see pictures, Facebook of girls that go to prom and see what they wear. Did their dad really protect their reputation? Because what girls wear and how they portray themselves plays into the reputation. And, I'm not going to sit here and say I'll never let my daughter buy a two-piece bathing suit. Like, I'm not going to sit here and say I won't do that. But also, again, being the father, being a man, knowing what boys are thinking, I need to be very aware of my daughter's reputation when it comes to that.
I think that's a key in that. I just want my daughter to know how many boys think. Yep. And I was a boy at that age at one time, and I've worked with young men all my life, and whether they're Christian or not, the same kind of hormones flow and a lot of the same thoughts happen. And so unless we really start to trust that we know, like you said before, that this boy has my daughter's interests at best heart there, that he's taking care of that, then we are going to try to teach our daughters to recognize, okay, what is this guy doing? What's his motive? All right. Yep. And that takes time. And again, finally, the end game here is that we want all the kids, the boys and the girls, to not do anything that they would regret, and to do something that would just honor who they are and in Christ.
Yeah, I mean, if we want to build strong, independent women, like, we should also let them know that if a man is not treating them correctly, that that's the time to get out. There's so many cases of women getting stuck in relationships that are not good. And did they have a father, or did they have a male role model in their life speaking truth? That if you get in those situations, there's a man not treating you the way you deserve, get out. And you have to be strong enough, knowing who you are as a person, know that you have a support system behind you to be like, that's a good reason to get out.
Yeah. So. Again, this is more about just not doing things, not allowing them to be in situations that they feel vulnerable, and then something bad happens and they lose something they can't ever bring back.
Sure.
So, hey, those are just some good little scenarios that we went through. Yeah. But let's, why do we go through this topic? Well, the whole idea is, I think in the last 20 years, we've questioned more about raising kids than ever before. And we've also questioned more about gender and the role of gender. And so, we have seen in the last 50 years a push towards a greater equality on many different fronts. And it's really kind of confused us in terms of our parenting. We've seen women rise up into the conference rooms in the corporate world. We've seen them run for presidential office. We've seen them partake in sports that they didn't partake in. And, we've seen a lot of great success. We've seen them in the military. Yep. And we've seen a lot of that push for inequality. And I think both you and I, we want to see our daughters thrive.
Sure.
But we also want to see them thrive with who God designed them to be, not with who the world says, hey, you might want to consider doing this.
Yeah.
And like I said before, every kid is different. And my daughter is a very feminine girl. And that just means that's how she's wired. Like
Sure.
her going out and doing hardcore, sweaty, picking up logs and that type of work, it's just not of her desire. I can't tell you that she wouldn't do it, but she's certainly not going to gravitate towards it. Okay.
And how important knowing that your daughter is that way. If you were to buy in some of the things that the world is currently telling us women should do, if you portray that to your daughter, you would make her feel less as a woman.
She would be totally feeling the fear. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, let's get behind the skills and abilities that our kids do have, even if they do meet some of the gender, the stereotypical gender jobs. Like, get behind those kids and make sure that they feel loved and respected, even though the world may say, oh, as a woman, you can do X, Y, Z, or as a man, you should be doing X, Y, Z.
Right.
Like, get behind your kids, whatever those skills and abilities they have, let's get behind them and make them feel empowered through that.
Yeah, and that's just stuff that we want to talk about, the idea of our big job is, instead of our kids playing this sport or that sport and being a certain way or not, our big job, first off, this is Strong Dads. We're a Christian podcast. Our first job is to introduce them to Christ.
Absolutely.
Okay, I don't care whether they're boys or girls, to introduce them to Christ, to understand the value of faith. Another big job that I really feel like we need to spend more time on, rather than whether they're playing soccer or volleyball or whatever, is, do your kids know how to be a servant?
Yeah.
Have you taught them the value of servanthood? Mm-hmm. Because servanthood is something that will serve them well throughout their life.
Yeah.
Okay. Have we taught them how to treat others with respect?
Yeah.
And the idea that all people are valuable. This is such a huge thing that we have the separation of, well, if this person doesn't agree with me or doesn't do what I do, then they're not as valuable. Yeah. Well, how about let's teaching that all people have value?
Sure.
Right?
Yep.
So by the way, the last three things I mentioned, none of them have anything to do with gender.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah, I mean, be coachable. Have an attitude that you're willing to learn from other people. Just like you're saying, other people have gifts and abilities. Like, let's learn from other people. Again, has nothing to do with gender, what your gender looks like. Little things. Don't take yourself so serious. Like, let's have a good time. Like, let's laugh a little bit together. Again, nothing to do with gender, but both genders need to kind of take hold of the fact that, man, we're so serious right now. Like, let's enjoy life a little bit. There's a lot of value in laughing at yourself. Mm-hmm. I'm sitting here sniffing and got all this snot up in my nose. Like, I can laugh at myself. I know I'm not.
I've been laughing at you, but I'm just laughing that I'm not going to get the cold, right?
There's a lot of value in learning how to forgive people. Like, let's teach our kids to learn how to forgive people. Like, not holding grudges against each other. Like, there's great value in that.
Yeah. The one thing I do want to mention is when we are working with our girls and our boys, to teach them the beauty and the gift that God gives us through our masculinity and through our femininity.
Absolutely.
And then how to use that as God's designed it. So my older boys, I would say, very masculine, very strong. And so my job was not to just say, man, you're a he-man, go out there and kick butt. My job was to say, how are you going to use your masculinity to be a servant of God?
Yeah.
And to honor a woman, and to use it in the right way, to be that source of strength. And so my wife and I, Linda, our job was to say, okay, these guys are really showing us a lot of this masculinity. Now we need to help let them know how God says you use that. Yeah. And the same thing with the femininity. Rather than to use any of these things as a leverage or a ploy or a way to manipulate, to say, how does God want your femininity to be used in a way of beauty? And in a way of caring and nurturing. And so these are gifts that are separate and different for a reason.
Yeah.
And so when we do talk about the difference between male and female, to teach our kids how to use those things the way God intended them to be.
Yeah, those are all really, really good stuff. And I've made mention before about the idea of toxic masculinity and how I can't stand that. Like if you're a man, be a man. Like there's definitely value in that. And just like you were saying, part of being masculine is knowing how to treat women. Like what better example of what a man looks like than for a man to treat a woman the way she deserves. With females, like we shouldn't hinder their emotional just because currently our society says you need to be a strong, independent woman. Like if they have emotions, they have emotions. That's how God, just like you were saying, that's how God made us. Like those are not flaws. Those are positive. Those are empowering things. I mean, we should use those as great power. That can really drastically change our community, change our family. I mean, there's great value in that.
Right, and they become less valuable when they are brought up and governed the way the world wants to see them.
Yeah.
So if I have a very masculine, strong young man, and I allow him to run out of control, to bully over top of people, to drive his influence in a negative way, to not be caring and loving. I mean, these are things that's toxic, right?
Yeah.
And that's how it gets the bum rap. So as dads, as you and I as dads, it is our responsibility to say, okay, son, you're kind of a strong dude, right?
Yeah.
So now how are we going to use that the right way? Yeah. And the same thing with our daughters. Okay, so you're a pretty sweet looking little girl, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so how are you supposed to use that to benefit and glorify God? And that's why our Christianity is so important here, because if I just go by way of teaching my kid how to be the way the world wants them to be in their masculinity and their femininity, that's when it can get gross and ugly.
Yeah.
Right? So anyway, hey, I enjoyed finding out that I screwed up on a lot of my parenting, and I continue to do this for a living. That's awesome. Yeah, I hope that you were able to relate to some of our stories out there, strong dads, and that none of this is a perfect science. Yeah. And the other thing is we don't spend a lot of time beating ourselves up from it.
Yeah.
It's a process of learning what we did wrong, how I need to approach my kid differently the next time. Each of our kids show us responses, and we're like, that's probably, if I continue doing what I'm doing, it's not going to lead my kid where I ultimately want them to be. Right. So this is a growth process.
For sure. Yeah. So, I mean, definitely some of our big takeaways. Just understand that the abilities that your kids have, whether it be male or female, like it's okay to have those stereotype male and female gender roles. It's okay to venture outside that, but the big thing, just supporting your kids in that, doing it in a biblical sense, knowing that those are gifts from God, and going about it in a way that is positive, that is lifting our kids up, and totally supporting them. That's one thing my dad always. There was never a day that ever went by that I didn't think my dad was 100% behind me on anything I was doing.
Right.
And there's great power in that.
Yeah. All right, great stuff. Okay, so we are going to close out. We want to thank all of our listeners, that those strong dads out there that are understanding the purpose of being a strong dad and why that's so important. We want to continue to encourage you to listen to all of our shows. Check out our website at rocksolidfamilies.org, and we have lots of other information on there, blogs and different classes that are coming up in the future. Also, any help that you can give us in the donation realm is always appreciated. We want to say thank you to our sponsors. You want to say thank you to your pork chop man?
Oh, yeah. So, definitely want to thank Kramer's Beer House down on 128 again. Really appreciate you guys. Gave me a great dinner there tonight. It was very good. Been around since 1982, and definitely still a Cincinnati favorites after the big fire they had down there, rebuilt and been better than ever. So good. Definitely go check them out for a great environment and some awesome food.
All right, and thanks to Mansfield Insurance Agency as they continue to provide the insurance product and service that serves the tri-state area. So for all your insurance needs, go see Mansfield Insurance. All right, we are going to close it out tonight. We want to thank everybody. Kyle, you want to sign us off?
Heck yeah, go out there and meet some strong dads.
Hey, this is Merle Hutchinson from Strong Dads. Strong Dads wants to thank Mansfield Insurance Agency in Bright, Indiana for sponsoring today's Strong Dads podcast. Established in 1981, the Mansfield Insurance Agency has been dedicated to the individuals and businesses in Bright, Indiana, serving clients throughout Indiana, Ohio, and Kentucky.